You're listening to Aggie Radio 92.3 KBLULP Logan, and this is False Pretense with River. Today is the final show for False Pretense, and it's going to be a cool one. We have Haunt Me lined up for an interview after the first song here, but until then we will listen to Waving Hands by Cold Cave while we make our final preparations and get ready for the interview segment. Thank you for tuning in to Aggie Radio. That was Waving Hands by Coldplay. And on that note, we can start our interview here. So I'm going to read out a little intro here. Welcome to False Pretense, Aggie Radio's favorite goth/post-punk/darkwave radio show. While today's show may mark the last installment of False Pretense, it is also the first to feature a live radio interview with a band. Calling in from Austin, Texas, I am pleased to welcome Darius Davila. Is that right? Did I say it right? Davila? Okay. Darius Davila, lead singer and songwriter of up-and-coming post-punk band Haunt Me, to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. So correct me if any of my notes here are wrong, but I put together some stuff here. So starting with the release of their EP, Vampires at Your Door, on February 14th, 2021, Haunt Me has had a busy year with a plethora of shows and releases, including the release of their excellent debut album, This Sadness Never Ends, which first hit streaming services October 8th, 2021. On January 7th, Haunt Me released their newest single, Watch You Bleed, which quickly became their most listened to track with just over 75,000 plays on Spotify to date. On April 12th, the band announced their first tour, a 16-date affair across the West Coast. So welcome to the show. I hope I got the little bits of info right on that one.
Yeah, dude, you killed it. You should write our Wikipedia page, because that was great.
I'd be happy to. I could just send you that over. It's all notes.
Yeah, no, that was good. Great job.
So I suppose to kick things off, we might as well get some background on you guys. So I was just wondering, how did Haunt Me start, and were there any events in particular that inspired you to start the project in general?
Yeah, so it really just started with it started during the quarantine, COVID period. I guess right in the middle of it. I don't know. I guess we're still going through COVID, so it's kind of hard to say. But yeah. So it started in 2021, early 2021, really the day before Valentine's Day. It's kind of weird that I remembered that, but pretty much it just started with me writing more music. I've been in bands a long time, been writing music since I was a kid. And kind of before COVID happened, I was kind of fell out of love with music performance. I kind of fell out of love with writing and playing music live, and I'd just been doing it for so long that it really just drained me, and it was exhausting, kind of, especially when I wasn't really seeing the fruit of my labor, so to speak. But COVID really sparked the interest in me again, and I kind of fell back in love with performing and writing music again, and I started writing more music, and then I realized that I wanted to start a completely new project, because at the time I was in an indie band, and the indie band was really eclectic in its sound. There was a lot of Strokes and Arctic Monkeys influence in that band, but then some of the songs sounded a lot like Joy Division and Interpol. And so when I started writing this new music during COVID, I realized that I wanted to just make a band that just sounded exclusively more darker, more post-punk, dark wave-ish. And kind of just go based on that. So that's kind of how Haunt Me started. I just started writing more, and I wanted to focus more on my darker influences, because I've always loved those sounds. And then as far as events that kind of sparked the birth of Haunt Me, it's just kind of bad events, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Looking back at it now, it doesn't bother me, but at the time, the death of my father was a big one. I was really close to my dad. He was my best friend, and so him passing for sure played a big part of that. The end of some really close friendships that I had at the time, people who I thought were really good friends, who I thought had my back, kind of us having a falling out, and then I was also in a really serious relationship at the time. I was dating this girl for 3 years, and we ended up breaking up. So it was kind of a culmination of all these bad events, if you will, that just kind of I guess led me to start writing more darker music, and led me to kind of give in more to that I guess sad lyrics, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's kind of how Haunt Me started, I guess, or formed.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So all this kind of occurred, I'm guessing, end of 2020, early 2021 then, huh?
Yeah, so as far as these events started happening. I mean, the events really started happening mid-2020.
Yeah.
And then I started writing at the end of 2020, but then I officially started the project early 2021. And then we didn't even get to play our first show until October of 2021. So we've only been playing live for 6 months. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the clips and everything. You guys sound like you are really good live. I'm excited to see you in Salt Lake, but we will chat about the shows later. On that note, I suppose we can move into the first feature, the song. We talked about this earlier. The first one we're going to talk about is Watch You Bleed. After listening through your albums and this particular single, I noticed it seems to have more of a some more synth pop and dance elements. So what was your process with writing this particular track, and how did it kind of end up with a slightly different sound or take on the dark wave genre than previous recordings?
Yeah, so like kind of like with the first record, with the EP and the first record, there's like hints of like more like electronic elements, but they're very faint. I mean, I think in the EP, if you listen to the song "You Should Know All the Freaks Come Out at Night," there's like a lot of synth in that one. But overall, the EP and the debut album are mostly like post-punk, I would say, like very guitar and bass driven. Not a whole lot of keys, not a whole lot of, not so much the wave, more of the post-punk, not so much dark wave or synth wave. But for after our debut album, I kind of wanted to like progress as a band and progress as a sound. So I wanted to write more electronic-based music. Again, that may change, but I don't ever want to be a band that just sounds the same. I think it's very boring when a band releases the same record like 4 times, 5 times, or you know what I mean. I want all of our albums to sound different. It doesn't have to be a drastic difference or anything like that, but I do want us to progress, just like sonically. And so for like Watch You Bleed, I really just wanted to like kind of dive more into the like club kind of music. Like I thought about like, well, what would I want to hear if I went to like a goth club or I went into just a club in general, right? What would make me want to dance or vibe? So that's kind of how Watch You Bleed came into play. I wanted to like mess more with electronics and synth, and also just make something more dancey.
Well, that's cool. I'm excited to hear what comes after Watch You Bleed. I mean, if that's the direction you want to take the project for future albums, I suppose you got a few things to do beforehand. But on that note, let's take a listen to Watch You Bleed by Haunt Me right now, and we will see you in 5 minutes to continue the feature or the segment. Thank you for listening to Aggie Radio here on 92.3 FM. That was Watch You Bleed by Haunt Me. If you're just tuning into Aggie Radio, you're listening to False Pretense with me, River, and I'm excited to have Haunt Me on as a guest for my first interview ever, and I believe their first live radio interview as well. So we're having a good old time, and thank you for joining us. Let's see. So our next two songs are featured on This Sadness Never Ends, your debut album. Are there any themes you consider central to the album overall? It kind of feels like it could be almost a concept album in some ways.
Yeah, but This Sadness Never Ends, that's a great question. I think, like, the overall theme of the album, it's just, like, loss. If there's one word I could use to describe it, like love lost or just lost. It really just, like, in any form. It doesn't have to be romantic love, but like it can be romantic love. It can be the loss of a loved one, of a relationship or friendship, just like loss of passion, just loss in general. It's just like an album of loss, which sounds super depressing, but it's pretty ironic because I consider myself a pretty happy person, to be honest, but I definitely wrote the album when I was going through a really hard time, probably one of the hardest times in my life, and I just feel like as an artist, at least for me, speaking for myself, like whatever I'm going through or however I feel in the moment, that's going to come out through my work, right? Through my music or whatever I'm creating.
Yeah.
So yeah, for this album, it's definitely the overall theme. The concept of it really is just loss and love lost, if you want to do that, because like even the album cover is actually my favorite painting of all time by a French painter named René Magritte, and even like the story behind the album cover is super depressing. It's really sad.
Oh, interesting.
But it like fits the album so perfectly, I think, and that's why I chose it. I'm just really drawn to those paintings.
Yeah, I think there's just something about the right art for an album, and like just the way the album sounds and feels does match the album art pretty damn well, if you ask me. So I think that was an excellent choice. Plus, it looks good as a vinyl cover as well, which I also have that. Very exciting. Unfortunately,
awesome! You bought one, huh?
Oh yeah. Pretty much as fast as I could. I didn't want to miss my chance.
I appreciate that.
So our next song is Dying in Your Arms, and I have a question about that, but I kind of want to relate it back to the themes question. What would you say Dying in Your Arms is about? Is it a romantic love song or about the loss of that, or is it something else? That song specifically, I suppose.
Yeah, Dying in Your Arms. That was actually, fun fact about that one, that was our first song we ever wrote.
Oh, wow.
So, like, as soon as we got together, that was what came out, and, like, it was one of those songs that we wrote it in, like, I think we wrote it in, like, an hour. It was, like, super fast, like, a super fast process, and It was just so generic. It was so fluid, and it was crazy, because this was the first time me and my guitarist ever hung out.
Really?
I had told, obviously, yeah, we hung out, obviously, with the intention of writing music. I had told him that I had written some lyrics and a bass riff, and so that song really started with the bass riff. And when we hung out, obviously we started recording, and literally it just fell into place. It was so fluid and so great. And yeah, we finished it in an hour, and then once we finished it, we like downloaded it onto our phones, and then we went for a ride to go get food or something, and we were listening to it in the car, and as we were listening to it, I remember we just like looked at each other and we're like, damn, we're onto something like super special, because the song just sounded so fucking good. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know.
It's all right. I guess it's not FCC compliant, but I didn't tell you ahead of time, so no worries.
My apologies. It just sounded really good, and we kind of knew instantly in the moment that like we had something special sound-wise, because we really loved the way it sounded. But as far as what it sounds like, the theme of it or what it's about, it's definitely about like love and love loss. Like pretty much it's kind of about like the beginning of a relationship, when you like always want to be with when you're like in love with someone and you always want to be with them, and they're like, they feel like home to you, you know what I mean, like their presence feels like home to you and you feel safe with them. And then that transition from that to breaking up and that separation from them.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what the song's about.
Wow, I'm gonna have to read through the lyrics. That's suitable. That's suitable for the album, and it's also incredible that was the first song you guys wrote as a band, and that it just came together like that. That's really impressive, especially because it took off. I mean, that was what my next question was going to be about. Is just stating that the song reached number 8 on the alternative music charts in Germany, correct?
Yeah. No, that's correct. Yeah, the song really did super well. Because, like I said, like when we first came together, we released the EP and like 4 singles all at once. So we had like all this music just like backed up and created because like during COVID we just started writing a lot and recording a lot. So when we released the EP, we released 4 singles at the same time. So it was just like a bunch of music released all at once. Yeah. And Dying in Your Arms, like by far, took off the fastest. It was like Dying in Your Arms and Surrender to the Night. Those 2 took off really fast, but then like Dying in Your Arms like got the most listens. But
just really went for it. So what was your initial reaction to seeing your song on a chart like so soon?
I was really, really surprised. I did not expect that at all, especially because like we're not signed to a label or anything. Like it's just completely independent. I was super surprised. Like I didn't know how to like take it. Germany, I guess they have like a really good post-punk scene, or they just have a really good like music taste. I'm not sure what it is. I've never been to Germany, but yeah, I was just very surprised. Very grateful though, and that's still like one of our biggest accomplishments, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty incredible accomplishment, just considering how, the band is in the early stages and everything. I mean, it'd be pretty cool. I think that's like anyone's dream, is just to see their song on some charts, especially some foreign ones. I think that's excellent. All right, well, without further ado, with all this talking about Dying in Your Arms, I suppose it's time for our listeners to hear it. So once again, here's Dying in Your Arms by Haunt Me from their excellent debut, This Sadness Never Ends.
When I first saw your face, I knew right from that
Welcome back to Aggie Radio 92.3 FM. You're listening to False Pretense, featuring a live interview with post-punk up-and-comers Haunt Me, as we talk about their most recent album, their latest debut album, This Sadness Never Ends, and we'll talk a little bit about their upcoming tour as well to close out the show. But first off, we talked earlier about how you've been in quite a few bands since you were 12 years old, and how they're all varied in genre and style, per se, let's say. And so, after so many years of working in these other bands, I mean, how did it feel to just start another project and to have it, attain so much success just within a year, and even more specifically about 6 months, given that you just only started playing live in October?
Yeah, it's been crazy, man. Very, very, it's very gratifying for sure. Like, been playing music since I was 12, been in bands since I was 12, and like you said, I mean, I've been in anything from like metal to hardcore to punk to indie, to playing in my church worship team. That's actually how I started. That's how I learned music. Actually, going to church and my youth pastor at the time just like being like, "Hey, we need a bass player. If I teach you how to play bass, will you play with us?" And I was just a kid, so I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So it's just kind of how it happened. But it's honestly like such a big moment in my life. Like looking back at it, like if I hadn't learned how to play bass, I don't know if I would have been into music, maybe. But that like really started it all. So bass is what started my love for music. After learning bass, I learned guitar on my own, and then just started doing keyboard and singing a little bit. But to answer your question directly, it's super, super gratifying because, just being in other bands, like I said, like after a while, I kind of burned myself out because I was just playing show after show after show, and so many lineup changes with so many different bands because musicians tend to be very flaky, and some are not as committed as others. And then sometimes your music just doesn't. Sometimes you reach a peak as a band. You know what I mean? Sometimes you reach you plateau, and you don't get any more popular. You don't get any bigger than that.
Yeah.
And it can be very like demoralizing, and it can be really like discouraging. And so after a while, after like being in a band for like 10 years, playing live shows like back to back, like it just became really exhausting. And that's kind of why I fell out of love with performing music for a while. Just because of that, I just like none of my bands really got my prior bands. None of them really got like super big or and it's not about getting big, but just like it didn't really get to the point to where it felt like it was worth it anymore. We didn't really see our audience really grow at all, and that can be very discouraging. So when this band started, and once it just like took off like crazy, and once it did, it was really gratifying because it felt like I was finally like all my hard work was finally paying off after years of just grinding and years of just playing the empty venues, or being paid nothing or playing free shows. So it was really gratifying, man. Honestly, like I'm just so grateful for everything that this band has brought, and grateful that people are actually like connecting with music. It resonates with people, and I appreciate that. That's what I care about most.
Yeah, I think the kind of the post-punk or dark wave crowds, goth, whatever, this subculture is just one of those alternatives, like kind of collectives. Like it's really a solid group, and it seems like a lot of the fans of this genre are pretty open to any sort of new band, and so it's kind of an untapped group for like support and potential success for a group, and it sounds like it's well earned and deserved for you guys. And on that note, I also have to ask, like, if you had to pick one thing that happened in the past year, whether it is a specific show, like the pressing of your LP on vinyl, or just like the chart thing, like what's your single greatest highlight of your career with the band so far?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And single greatest highlight, I would say it may not seem like that big of a deal, but like probably the vinyl thing, getting the music on vinyl, because like I've always wanted, ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to have like my band's music pressed to vinyl. So that seeing that was super cool. But honestly, the chart thing was super cool too, because like that one was just more unexpected. I didn't even expect that at all. So both of those would probably have to be neck and neck with each other. One for like sentimental reasons, and the other one for just like it just kind of like took me by surprise, I guess.
Yeah,
it's
kind of like one was in your control and the other wasn't, and it's kind of cool in those ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think like our biggest accomplishment yet is in July, and I think you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, it's tour time. Let's talk about the tour before we close out the interview. So yeah, perhaps the most exciting news in recent memory for the band is your West Coast tour over the summer. And I mean, I already have tickets to the Metro Music Hall show on July 13th, which I will be thrilled to go to when the time comes, I suppose. And so for our listeners, where can they find more information about the tour and the band and, future releases?
Yeah, everyone can find all information about tours or shows and merch and pretty much anything you need to know about Haunt Me can be found on our social media accounts. We use them all, I'd say, pretty actively, but I think Instagram is the one we use like most actively. And our social media handles are hauntme.music. You can find those on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on Bandcamp. But if you go to our Instagram, we have our like link tree posted in our bio, and the link tree has links to all like everything you would need, like all of our music, our merch site, some tour. If you want to, buy a pre-sale ticket for tour, those links are available too. So it definitely, our social media accounts will definitely be the best place for anyone to go if they want to stay up to date with us and tour and all that good stuff.
All right, awesome. Well, you heard it here. Go check hauntme.music, correct? Yeah, on Instagram and other social media accounts for updates on the tour. There's 16 shows, so if you're a West Coaster, go check it out and see if Haunt Me will be swinging through a town near you. Thank you for joining me on the show. I think it was a good time here, and I hope you enjoyed it. I know I had a good time. And
I had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us. To finish off the interview, we are featuring one more song. I decided to listen through the album and kind of pick one of the tracks that has been played less, let's say. And this one spoke to me. It is Nothing Lasts by Haunt Me. Go check out the debut album. And thank you for listening to False Pretense here on Aggie Radio. That was Nothing Lasts by Haunt Me, who we just concluded our interview with. Go check out hauntme.music and see if you want to check out their show. And also, of course, listen to the debut album there. I think that was a good time. And